How's it going, all you beautiful people? My name is Season Dragon, and welcome to the first episode of Deck Building with a Budget. This series is dedicated to those of you who want to play Commander, but are, like me, down on money. For our first episode, I do have a co-host.
Hi.
I don't know what to call you.
Mask. Or Nathan.
Yeah, he's been... You might actually recognize him. He's been there for my old World of Warships videos back when I played that atrocity.
Yeah. We both stopped playing that.
But anyway, the commander we're going on for our first episode is Bladewing the Risen.
We all love dragons, right?
Well, you play this commander. Do you think you're confident enough to give the rundown on it?
I'm confident enough. Well, the thing is, the commander doesn't have a tap ability. So they're not the strongest on their own, only reaching to the potential of 5/5, but +1/+1 counter on every dragon on the field with the dragon deck switches. Well, a lot of dragons can certainly overwhelm someone, especially since some decks aren't tailored to flying at all. So they should be pretty powerful. The thing is, I've never considered the cost expense of the cards now that I think about it.
And Bladewing's mana cost itself is fairly strange, costing 2 black, 2 red, and 3 of any color. He is legendary creature Zombie Dragon, so he could be a commander for Zombie Tribal or Dragon Tribal, but today we're going with Dragon Tribal. And also,
he uses visibility very well.
Also doesn't have a tap ability, he has an ETB ability. When Bladewing the Risen enters the battlefield, you may return target dragon permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Which is very nice. Oh god, I need this card back button. The prices for this deck will be primarily based off of TCG player, which deals in both new and used cards from various sets. And will attempt to keep this deck between $50 to $70 in cost. However, at EDH Rec for my recommendations for a Dragon Tribal deck. What I end up with is I'm going to go from least to most, 1 Planeswalker, 5 enchantments, 10 artifacts, 13 sorceries, 8 instants, 27 creatures, and 35 lands. The biggest things that can rack up fast are creature costs and artifact costs, because there are a lot of cards that are very good and very expensive. Thankfully, there's also a lot of cards that are very good and very cheap. The way EDH Rec works is it also will show off, like, the card synergy, how will this synergize with the deck. And with dragons, you have a lot of cheap options and a lot of obscenely expensive options. We're going to be going with the latter, because, dear lord. See some of the higher synergy cards, and then just the top cards used in general. Thankfully, the color in question, Rakdos, black and red, isn't too expensive, and involves just having a lot of fodder around. First, let's get ourselves the Planeswalker of our choice. It goes something with high... Yes?
Oh, no, I was just saying yeah, sorry.
We have something that's high synergy, but not, like, ridiculously expensive. Thankfully, here we have Sarkhan the Masterless. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature. Which holds the potential to just stop your opponent from being able to swing at you, which is hilarious.
That or completely dismantle token decks.
His +1 ability, until end of turn, each planeswalker you control becomes a 4/4 red dragon creature and gains flying. This is kind of a meh ability. It's decent if you just need 1 more attacker. And then -3, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. That is fairly useful.
It's pretty useful.
Sarkhan the Masterless. Now, for the rest of this, I will be cutting out this process of just searching for cards, because I'm pretty certain it's not too interesting for me to constantly tell you, ooh, this card is cheap, let's go with this. But I will show you what I've done after the fact, so when it So first it comes to making the enchantment card, so I'll be back in a moment. I am back. That took a few minutes, but now we have our enchantments. First, we're starting with the most expensive one, the Crucible of Fire. At costing 181 and 4 mana, all dragon creatures you control get +3/+3. This is an incredible enchantment and absolutely mandatory on any dragon decks, since the amount of merit it gives you is limitless. Combining that with Bladewing's extra +1/+1, congratulations, you made your dragon an 8/8. You're welcome.
Yeah. Also, I just realized I do have it in my Blade Risen deck. It's just never showed up for me.
X is the
So I hope
Outpost.
you die, folks.
The Outpost Siege, which costing 19 cents and 4 mana. As Outpost Siege enters the battlefield, choose Cons or Dragons. If you choose Cons, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card. It's a very useful way to get or to get a card out faster. Or Dragons, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, Outpost Siege deals 1 damage to any target. Sort of a...
Again, if you have a problem with token decks, that could quickly solve it if they don't have too many things that apply counters on mass amount targets.
Or if you have creatures that have effects when they take damage, you could use that to ping them and then deal damage from there.
So if you do find a dragon that spawns more dragons by getting pinged, well, yeah, that works a treat.
And then the Sarkhan's Unsealing. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to any target. Incredible spot removal, especially since most dragons have a bare minimum of 4 power.
With the only exception being considered the Desert Drake, that doesn't even count as a dragon. Why does it say it's a dragon, even though it's like on the card description, even though it's not counted as one in gameplay?
Do not ask.
Alright, this hold as hell.
If you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. That is, what we call in the business, a board wipe.
Yeah.
Now then, admittedly, I'm not certain that if casting a creature with base 4 power with the Crucible of Fire active counts as casting something with 7 power, because I don't play on Arena where the rules are concrete, and in my group we will sometimes change rulings based on how good of a day we've had. But if it is ruled like that, then in which case you have a very variable pinging mechanism. And then the Eldest Reborn. This has a little bit of a trick up its sleeve. It's a saga card, so it takes 3 turns to reach its full effect, costing about 46 cents and 5 mana. Stage 1, each opponent sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. Admittedly, some people will just cheat and sacrifice a token for this. Phase 2, each opponent discards a card. Step 3, put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. A third effect is nice for getting your creatures back, or if someone is a creature you like, get them back. Anyway, now it's time for... Wait, I forgot there's actually one more enchantment to go through. Apologies. Warstorm Surge. 35 cents, 6 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any other target. I'd like to call it the Quit It tool.
Yeah.
Although it's a worse
exactly what it's used for.
version of another enchantment known as the Dragon Tempest, which I'm going to show that off. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gains haste until end of turn. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. I'll put this in what I'm calling the Maybe Lord, which is for cards that are maybes, but if you want to stretch the budget a little bit. For example, the Palace Siege. Similar to the Outpost Siege, but instead Cons does, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, And dragons, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Cons is probably the stronger effect, but dragons is very, very good for putting your opponents on a very short timer. And now it's time to focus on the instants. There would be 8 of them in this deck, so I'll be back with the instants. Thank you for your patience, even though it only took you a split second, but we are back with our 8 instants. The first I did not mean to subtract that from the deck, I meant to select it.
Bye, fingers.
Be quiet. Anyway, first we have Antagonize for a grand total of 1 cent and 2 mana. Target creature gets +4/+3 until end of turn.
It is really good for beefing up a dragon for that 1 strike. Dragons about you realize none of your dragons can deal enough to finish off an opponent, or at least make a big enough dent in the head where they have to worry about it. Well, with this card, you simply just toss enough rats at your dragon and point at the enemy, and they will go after them. Don't ask why it's rats. We have a lot of them.
Okay, next is Bedevil for 74 cents and 3 mana. Destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Just very simple, very useful. Nothing more to say about that. Next is
straightforward.
Next is the big score. As additional cost to cast this spell, you discard a card, draw 2 cards, and create 2 treasure tokens. If you just want a bad card out of your hand, throw this, get rid of it, draw 2 cards, and get 2 treasure tokens.
Which is two single-use manas, but the thing is, those manas can be used on, well, anything. It's pretty useful.
52 cents and 4 mana for a pretty good card. And there's Dark Ritual. For 86 cents and 1 black mana, you add 3 black mana to your mana pool. I like this card a lot. It's a very... You first?
Yeah. It's very helpful, especially in the case that you don't have that much black mana in the first place. This card can help you spend the mana you don't need or could transfer, or basically if you're a few black mana short because you don't have a lot of like something like Chromatic Lantern or Morphon, because those are expensive, then this thing helps with a single-use thing to get a card out there in the battlefield. Saved me a couple times.
The next, costing 14 cents and then 2x mana, is the Magma Quake. Deals X damage to each creature without flying and each planeswalker. Anything that says without flying basically just means your dragons are safe, everything else isn't.
Yeah, unless they have Archetype Imagination.
Yeah, well, in which case, you could just use this next card, which costs 5 cents and 3 mana, Murder. Destroy target creature.
It is very straightforward.
Strict to the point.
You just pull out a gun and it shoots the card. That's it.
And then, one of my favorite cards, 16 cents and 3 mana, Spit Flame. Spit Flame deals 4 damage to target creature. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield, if you pay a red mana, it goes from your graveyard back to your hand. I like this card a lot. It is very, very useful.
It is very, very useful.
Then there is...
Rent. Is that like the official name for it? Rent mana? Because I just imagine just like renting out the card to use for the day.
No, I said red mana.
Red mana, okay.
Anyway, our last one is Terminate. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Costing 44 cents and black-red.
Remember, always save it for the ones that annoy you the most, which you will know it when it comes, which is usually a couple cards after when you would have used it just to get some, just so you don't have to throw something away.
Or perpetually bully somebody's commander. That's funny.
I damn you, Zangief.
And then next would be 10 artifacts. Thankfully, this one is pretty simple. I'll also make a cut for it, since 10 artifacts is still quite a bit, but it's pretty easy to figure this one out. I'll be back in a moment. Welcome back once more. We have our
Artifacts.
10 artifacts. The first one we're going to start off with is the Arcane Signet. Costs 2 mana, 75 cents. Tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, which is either black or red. It good. Nothing
So pretty much an
say.
entire deck covered, yeah.
Nothing to say, it good. Then the Carnelian Orb of Dragonkind. Tap it for a red mana, and if that mana is spent on a dragon creature spell, it gains haste. 32 cents and 3 mana. This is incredibly good because there's no other easy way to get haste on our creatures, so yep.
Yeah, out of the gate's hands ready.
Next is the Charcoal Diamond. For 10 cents and 2 mana, and there's tapped. Tap it for a black. Black mana,
Play a
good.
land, you play that.
Then the Commander's Sphere. Costs 27 cents, 3 mana. You tap it, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, and then sacrifice it to draw a card. There's the Decanter of Endless Water. It gives you no maximum hand size. You tap it to add 1 mana of any color. 18 cents, 3 mana.
It's a bare thought vessel.
That vessel's already a pretty good card. And there's the Dragon's Horde. 71 cents and 3 mana. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, put a gold counter on it. If you tap it and remove the gold counter from it, you draw a card. And if you just straight tap it, add 1 mana of any color. Fire Diamond, 10 cents, 2 mana. Charcoal Diamond, but red. Nothing more to say. Good. And there's another one. The Ghost Lantern.
My suggestion.
If you cast it as an instant, this one costs 14 cents. If you cast it as an instant, Bind Spirit, it's 1 and a black. Return target creature from graveyard to your hand. Then exile this card. You may cast it later from exile. Whenever the creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. So it costs.
You have a creature that's really good at tanking or really good at producing tokens like Lathalis. Lathalis is probably too expensive for the deck, but hey, in case you were into a whole buying some of those deck pack things, they're basically just loot boxes but in real life for cards. Then this card will be very useful to equip on them.
It's also just good if you're very good at getting your creatures killed.
But always keeping one alive.
And then there is Soul Ring, one of the more expensive cards of this entire deck, coming out at 123, but for 1 mana, tap it, add 2 colorless. One of the premier commander artifacts, thus explaining its above average price.
Yep. Definitely not outrageous.
Finally is the Swiftfoot Boots. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Cast this onto your commander the turn he comes in. 99 cents, 2 mana, and yeah. That was a bit more of an expansive portion. The Sorceries, 13 cards. This will probably take a bit. Also, there are a few, before we get into that, there are a few maybe artifacts. The first is Chromatic Lantern. Costing $11 for 3 mana. All lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Then you tap it to add 1 mana of any color. A premier artifact for multicolor decks. Then the Whip of Erebos. Creatures you control have lifelink. You spend 4 and then tap it. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it will leave the battlefield, exile it instead of placing it anywhere else.
Mirror for giving life.
It gives your creature 1 last breath. Anyway, I'll be back with the sorceries. We are back with our 13 sorceries. The first is Abandon the Post. Up to 2 creatures can't block this turn. Costs all of 1 cent, and then 2 mana.
What's that? Your enemy has 2 goddamn highly beefy creatures, or somehow the big furry monster somehow. Not a lot of people play that deck. I know someone who does though. Is that legal?
The
we don't care about legal here.
BFM is
We don't legal
illegal
anyway.
because it's like double cards.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Though if you're still playing, casually with friends, like I plan to, but you're moving to in person. This could easily screw over the big attacking creatures they have, though it's not that well bad. It's just you want to get hit with two particular effects if that creature will take damage, like Polyraptor. Polyraptor, it's called Polyraptor, right?
Yes.
Like Polyraptor, if it takes any point of damage, it duplicates. You do not want to deal with that, then just make an unable block this turn and go right through it into something else. I don't know, some other dinosaur. Dinosaurs actually just have a lot of dinosaurs.
Well, its main purpose is also if only two of your opponent's creatures have reach, they don't get to block, so you can just deal uninterrupted damage.
Oh, they're not running spiders.
And also, flashback, so you can cast it again. So you can cast it twice per game. Next is the Blazing Volley. Deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control.
Yep. Really good for wiping out, again, token decks, which is something a lot of people struggle with, such as the Serpent. No, the Serpent wouldn't work on that because it's just 3/3.
Yeah, it wouldn't work on it wouldn't work on Belladross.
It will work on Belladross. Keep in mind your opponent will gain HP, but with dragons you're usually able to melt it faster. Because they breathe fire.
And also just a nice way to weaken your opponent's creatures before an attack. Next up is Blightning. Blightning deals 3 damage to target player, and then that player discards 2 cards.
It's a nice slap across the face.
Yeah. And the Bond of Revival. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains haste until your next turn. Bring a creature back, throw it back in. Next up is Cathartic Reunion. Additional cost to cast the spell, discard 2 cards, draw 3 cards. Mostly you want to discard creature cards because you have a lot of ways to get them back, whether through other sorceries or Bladewing's effects.
Yeah.
There's Diabolic Tutor, which lets you search the library for whatever you feel like.
You want mana ramp, you get that. You want your big creature, get that. You just want a card that you think would be nice in that situation, and you just like had this at the beginning of the game, and everything. Just double up on whatever the hell you want.
Next one is the Draconic Intervention. Additional cost is cast the spell, exile an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard. Draconic Intervention deals X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is the exiled card's mana value. If the creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead, and then exile Draconic Intervention. Cards that say exile them afterwards are good because they have one crazy effect. To use this effect, absolutely destroy them, and then go from there. Then there's Earthquake. It's Magma Quake, but a sorcery. Very good.
Board wipes, people, board wipes.
And there is Fearsome Awakening. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it's a dragon, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. I don't think I need to tell you this is incredible.
Boss battle. You have just activated phase 2 of the boss battle.
And then Feed the Swarm. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that target's mana value. Still good. Still good.
So good.
And then Sign in Blood. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Be kind of funny to kill somebody with this.
If you pull on me, I swear to God.
It'll be funny.
It will not. I will be salty for a week, but I will laugh about it at the beginning.
And then Tormenting Voice. Discard a card, draw 2 cards. Yeah. I also do love the picture for this card because the dragons really go in. God, I can't even imitate it. I'll link the video I'm thinking about in the description.
Hold on. Let me look up the card and see if I can know what you're talking about.
And then Victimize. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. Just throw away a token, get 2 of your dragons back. Everything is fine. There is no complaints here. If your dragons complain, just tell them they're part of an advanced recycling scheme.
Actually, I don't think the dragons can complain once you turn them into zombies.
Also, a card I'm throwing in the baby pile is the Mana Geyser. Add 1 red mana for each tapped land your opponents control. This is a bit of an expensive card.
Sorry. Continue.
But can end the game if you use it right.
I have screwed over you guys a lot with that one, because you guys never expect it. And when I bring that out, you guys always like, it's always when you guys conveniently spend all your mana. So then, when I had 0 dragons before, now it's just everything.
Let me tell you something. 50 mana, ring a bell? I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
You got 50 mana, played 10 creatures, proceeded to kill me. I was pissed.
To be fair, you did use Nihilist and then Aetherized me, which we will get to later. We will do that secret. We will do that on a budget. Horrible.
Oh, I am eagerly awaiting doing Nezahal.
I know you're eagerly waiting. I'm eagerly awaiting anything that's black-white, because I get to talk about the ink cards, like my 2 most favorite ones.
Anyway, next up is lands. It's a very simple category, so this cut won't be long. Welcome back, everyone. Now we have our lands. First is the Bojuka Bog. It enters the battlefield tapped. There's the battlefield. Exile target player's graveyard. Fuck you, other black players.
Do you want to rephrase that?
No.
Okay.
Next is Command Tower. You just tap it, add 1 mana of any color in commander's color identity.
Just useful.
Yep. Crucible the Spirit Dragon. Tap it, add colorless. Spend 1 mana and tap it. Put a storage counter on Crucible the Spirit Dragon. And then tap it, remove X spirit counters from Crucible the Spirit Dragon. Add X mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells or activate abilities of dragons. I like it. There's the Myriad Landscape. There's battlefield tapped. Tap it for a colorless. Spend 2 to tap and sacrifice it. Look for your library for 2 basic lands that share a land type. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. At the Ancestry, enters the battlefield tapped. Add 1 mana in commander's color identity. When that's spent to cast a creature spell that shares identity with a creature type with commander, scry 1. Good for dragons. There's the Rogue's Passage. Tap it for colorless, or spend 4 to tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Gee, wouldn't it suck if your opponent couldn't block your 10/10 dragon? That would be a shame, wouldn't it? Temple of the False God. Tap it for 2 colorless. You can only activate it if you control 5 or more lands. And then you have 14 mountains and 14 swamps. These are very basic. And now, finally, we are almost to the end after this. Good lord, this recording is kind of long. For 27 creatures, 27 raw dragons. And I will be back. And we are back with 27 extra creatures. This video was going on for a while, so if I go over all of them, we'll probably be here for an hour. So instead, I'll leave you to look through them yourselves and look at the maybe board creatures. First is the Brainstealer Dragon. For 239 and 7 mana. Beginning of your end step, exile the top card of each opponent's library. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. Whenever a non-land permanent an opponent owns enters the battlefield under your control, they lose life equal to its value. A very powerful card. Play it.
I believe that one's actually screwed me over.
If friends are optional. And then Morophon the Boundless. For 2114. More expensive than most of this deck even. It's every single creature type. As soon as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. They cost 1 of each colored mana less to cast, and they get +1/+1. But now,
So, yeah, can I go?
sure.
The reason we're suggesting this is because you're buying this in person, so that means if you have the card, you have it permanently for each deck, like Chromatic Lantern or something else. So if you have so now you can just use that in the deck, making building for the future much easier. Yeah, it needs to be out last slot. Throwing Morphon, throwing Chromatic Lantern, it basically solves a lot of mana issues and boosts your cards up more.
And finally, this deck's cost is $29.85.
Which is not that bad.
$30 for 100 cards. And if you have anything of this in your possession already, you can cut that cost down a little bit by only getting what you need. In terms of stats, average converted mana cost of 3.77, with most of its cards costing 2 mana. Grand total of 15. And so, the link to this architect will be in the description, so if you like this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Brainstealer Dragon signing off.